Everyone, thank you for joining today. I hope this to be a short session and somewhat interactive at the end, but I do want to take this time to introduce Course Hero and how we function and operate in copyright and under the DMCA. And before I go into copyright and DMCA, I do want to remind all of you, if you weren't able to see Andrew's speech this morning or hear more about us, Course Hero, we are a provider of education technology. Our mission is to help all students graduate confident and prepared. So what does that mean practically? Well, we are an online platform that make resources available to students. Currently, we have over 65 million course-specific study resources created for and by students and educators, as well as 24/7 homework help and some textbook solutions available to students. The range of the learning materials that we have on the platform range from practice problems, study guides, class notes, step-by-step instructions, all with the intent of helping students as they are learning and when they are stuck. And this resonates a lot with me because I am a first-generation college-going student in my family. And I remember many nights where I was stuck on certain problems and concepts and had no one to turn to for help. And the idea that Course Hero is available for students at that moment is really, really exciting to me. But we also recognize that having this much access is not available for everyone. And so before I talk about that, I do want to talk a little bit about the amount of traffic that is available. We have over 20 million unique visitors monthly that come on our site. We have 70,000 faculty members that are verified educator on our site. We have in this library over, excuse me, my presentation is stuck. Oh, here we go. Sorry, online difficulties. We have different ways for students to access this online library of 65 million documents. They can either pay to have access to it, or they can share their own resources, which means that at any given time, this library is growing. And I do want to make it a point to say that we do recognize that with any kind of content library that students have access to and contribute to, there is going to be content that is offensive. And by offensive content, I do mean that it could be anything from fraudulent content, it could be gibberish, or it could be content that infringes the rights of others. And with 65 million documents, it is difficult for us to control. And there are things that we do that is proactive and reactive to help address that situation. I apologize, I can't seem to move my deck.
Monique, I have yours if you'd like me to share for you.
I think it's just really delayed. Okay, yeah, I think I'm good. Let me keep going. And if I keep getting stuck, I will ask for help. Sorry about that. Okay, so back to what I was saying. There are things that Course Hero does to combat content infringement that is very proactive. And some of the proactive things that we do is by using technology. Technology in a couple of different ways. We use machine learning to prevent certain content from being uploaded that has image files that we know of that is copywritten, that has certain logos or has certain disclaimers that we have in our files. We also use technology to prevent content from being uploaded that already exists on our platform. And that can be important in a couple of reasons. One is we allow something that I will address later, we allow educators to upload their own content. So once it is on our site, no one else can upload that kind of content. We also have a removal system. So any content that is actually removed will not be re-uploaded again onto our site. In addition to these technological measures, we also use AI or ML to detect content that we know of to be either infringing or fraudulent. And that ML is something that is constantly being improved and updated. And that means, though, is that it's not perfect. And so we do look at the content holders, the copyright owners, to help us monitor what's theirs on our site. And that's what I meant earlier by saying that we are reactive as well. And the best part of what we do, and the biggest part of what we do that is reactive, is that we have a process that is called notice and takedown, which I will go through in a little more detail in a little bit, that allows content holders and content creators to remove material that is infringing on their copyright. In order to implement that, we have a notice and takedown process, we have a repeat infringer process, and we also have a verified educator program that allows you to access some of this stuff in a much easier fashion. And I will go into that in a little bit. And I seem to be skipping the slides, sorry. Okay, so what is copyright and what's being protected here? I only throw this up because I am, after all, a lawyer, and this has always been interesting to me, which is that copyright is actually something that is delineated in the Constitution of the United States. And you can read this yourself, but basically copyright is intended to protect original works of authorship. What does that mean, original works? Original works is anything that is independently created by a human author. And it could have any degree of creativity, but it has to be fixed works. So what does that actually mean? That just sounds like words. So by way of example, this talk I'm giving today, it's not fixed. So what I'm saying right now, what you're watching isn't protected by copyright. What the slides show is protected. So if this slide deck, minus some of the third-party content I have in here, is uploaded to a platform like Course Hero, I can ask for it to be taken down because it violates my intellectual property. If you're taking notes, let's say you are, and that you find this interesting, your notes are not protected by my copyright. It is protected by your copyright. So this is a concept that we try to keep in mind as we get things like takedown requests from content creators. Who is a copyright owner? Like I just gave an example of who owns what. It's also important to keep in mind that if you take a photo, you're the copyright holder of that photo. However, if you take a photo or you are writing an article on behalf of an organization, on behalf of an institution, on behalf of a company, that company, institution, or organization may actually be the owner of your works, even if you are the creator of that work. And that's important, again, because it's something that we actually have to keep in mind as we get takedown requests or we get outreach from content creators and owners, that they may be conflicting or competing or additional rights and ownership that we have to take into account. This is just fun for me. How long does copyright protection last? It lasts for the life of the author. Once it's created, plus 70 years, meaning that all of this, including this slide deck, will probably long outlive me. With your copyright comes with certain copyright ownership rights. And it includes things like the right to distribute and make copies, the right to create and prepare derivative works. All of this is important and easy to enforce before the internet came into being. Once the internet came into being, Congress and lawmakers really recognized all over the world that it became really difficult to enforce and recognize copyright ownership. And in reaction to that, Congress passed in the United States what's called the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that gave out a little more specifically what rights holders have online and what online sites like Course Hero have to do in order to facilitate the removal, the recognition, and the takedown and the stay down of copyright content that is found on their site. And the way Course Hero implements this process is something I will go over next. We have a 5-step process, and it's not something I'm going to go through too deeply step by step. I do think it's kind of important to highlight what they are. The first one that's important is, in order for Course Hero or any other site to know that your content is on their site, is for you to notify the site. And I will go through the mechanics of that in a little bit, but I kind of want to go through what happens after that. So Course Hero will then remove the materials. We will notify the user who uploaded it in the first place that there is a takedown. The user has an opportunity to respond. And if they respond, Course Hero has to take certain action. And again, I only want to go through this because it's important to understand that there are multiple steps to this process, as well as explain why sometimes things are not removed right away, or things come back onto the site, or why we ask for certain information. And I'll give an example of that in a little bit. So I am not going to read this to everyone, but the deck will be available if you have, once this is done. The notice that you give Course Hero or any site or any content holder gives to sites must contain certain information. And I'll give an example of what that looks like on Course Hero in a little bit, but just important to note that these are requirements under the DMCA, but also requirements that's helpful for Course Hero and any other site to locate the content that is infringing, to understand who is making the claim, and to know why that claim is being made. And I've already covered this, so I'm kind of just going to go through these slides. So how does Course Hero comply with what I just explained? Kind of want to walk you guys through a video of what it looks like and where you find it. So let's start. Now, if I, as a content creator, go onto the site and I search for a piece of material I know that could be located on Course Hero that's infringing, I find it, and I confirm that it is indeed something I created. I will make a note of the URL, and then I will go to the Course Hero copyright page that you can find on the bottom of our site. And by the way, the copyright policy link is a good place to find a lot of materials related to copyright that exists on Course Hero, including learning the basics of what is copyright. Now that you're on that page, if you click on the submission of the takedown notice, that is what would take you to this form. And the form will ask you to make certain declarations and information. Are you making this claim on behalf of yourself or your organization? Let's say you're doing it on yourself, but you are part of an organization. You have to fill in this information. It's important, one, for us to verify that you are indeed the copyright holder. It's also important so that we can contact you if some information is missing. We ask you to give us the URL of the infringing material. And that's important because, as I said earlier, we have 65 million documents. And I do get these notices. People tell me, you have my paper on your site. I can't find it. Even if I have your name in the title of the paper, sometimes it's difficult. And so that helps us locate exactly what content you're talking about. And you can add additional works in that block that we were just talking about, in that little box. Provide your contact information. So again, we can reach out to you if we had questions. It is also important because we will notify the uploader, the person who added this material in the first place, that there is a takedown notice and who has submitted that takedown notice. And that's important because, one, it's compliant with DMCA, but also allows the uploader to say, well, wait a minute, actually I have permission from this person because I licensed it from them, or I actually am their employer and I have the right to upload this information in the first place. You check a couple of other boxes that tells us that you are indeed the copyright holder, that this was filled out in good faith, because we actually do get people fill out information like this out fraudulently. You submit your request, and then it goes into our queue. Your part is done for the moment. So what happens when we get a takedown notice? We process it. If we had additional questions, we will come back to you. Again, that's why you give us the information, so that we can let you know that, oh, we didn't get a URL and therefore we can't find the materials that you're talking about. Or some of the URL that you submitted seemed to be owned by someone else. Can you clarify the ownership rights or exactly your relationship with this person? And then if it is properly filed to takedown notice, this is what we do is remove that material. And we let the uploader know that someone has filed a takedown notice. This is where they have an opportunity, again, like I said earlier, to dispute it. They can reach out to you as the requester and say, hey, I licensed this from you, or no, this is my interpretation of the lecture that you gave, or this is actually used in fair use because it is, let's say it is a paper case study that someone wrote, but this is my interpretation of what that meant, or it's my further research, or it's my answer to a question that is posed. There are many cases where the uploader, original uploader, can claim that I am using this as a fair use defense to copyright infringement, or I have the rights to it, or that the notice was not properly issued in the first place. Assuming that it was issued properly, what happens when Course Hero takes down the material? And by the way, as a reminder, once something is removed, unless what I talked about earlier happens, it will stay removed. So that means someone else cannot come and re-upload it. The initial user cannot re-upload it, and it will remain taken down for, as long as we have the technology in place to detect that. What happens to the user though, when you submit a takedown notice and content is removed, is that they get a strike. And what happens when they get a strike on their record is that they are not allowed to upload any additional materials until they go through copyright training on our site. Some users never do it. They never come back to our site and never upload anything else. Others go through copyright school, as we call it. Once they pass that and they take a quiz, they're allowed to re-upload documents. However, if they do this 3 times, they are permanently blocked from the platform. And the reason I make this point is that we get this question a lot. Are people allowed to just keep posting my materials? The answer is no, because you cannot re-upload something that's been removed. I get questions like, are people allowed to keep becoming a bad actor? They keep putting other people's infringing materials on your site. And the answer is no, we warn the users and then we eventually remove them. I talked a lot about US copyright, mostly by talking about the DMCA. And I do want to highlight the fact that US is not unique in this situation. I know that we have attendees from all over the world, and I don't have that many dots on this map, but I do want to highlight that most of the world follows the same process, which is kind of generically called a notice and takedown process. Kind of back to what we were talking about earlier. Once we get a notice, we take it down, and then there's kind of a back-end dispute resolution that can happen. Other parts of the world, like Canada, has a notice and notice process, meaning that if we get a takedown notice, we will notify the user that someone has asked for it to be removed, and then we can let the user and the person filing the complaint kind of fight it out. We comply with both of these processes by the workflow that I just mentioned. I touched on this earlier very briefly, that as a verified educator, which I hope you guys all are, you have a couple of rights. One, you have free access to our site that both helps you in seeing what content is available, in monitoring content that is available on our site so that you could quickly act to let us know things are infringing that we can remove. We also have the ability for you to claim a course. So if you were teaching, say, Bio 101 at Cal this year, you will be notified when students upload content and materials that's associated with that course, enabling you to go in there and quickly review what's been uploaded and take down and ask us to remove anything that you find infringing. And finally, you can participate in this process as well. By the way, you don't have to be a verified educator in order to use our site, in order to upload materials. But you can upload materials through an educator exchange program, which we've talked about previously. But this program allows you to find and upload materials that you think will be helpful to students as they navigate the course that you're teaching. And finally, I do want to introduce the team that you've met, I think, at Coursio that can help you with this journey, either on the student team or in the compliance side. And you've met Harriet earlier this morning. That is the end of my prepared materials. I want to thank you all for coming, and we can take questions at this time.
Thanks so much, Monique. We have a really great discussion started by Ian Johnson here in the Q&A. I'll read out his initial question, and perhaps we can look through the responses below as well to make sure they're addressed. Ian writes, many of my colleagues refer to Course Hero as a cheat site because so much of our assessment material ends up posted and solved. It's not a view I share because I dislike characterizing asking for help as cheating, but I would welcome your response. Ian's from the UK, so DMCA rules may not apply.
Welcome from the UK. It's early there, I think. Chris is right, DMCA does not apply, but the UK has a very similar process to ours. And I think there it's called, takedown and stay down, which is very similar to the takedown, the notice and takedown process that we have in the US. I think the question that you've asked is more about academic integrity than it is about copyright infringement. And we can address both, but I do want to acknowledge that copyright is not the right mechanism to deal with what you're saying as is students supplying answers to assessment questions, right? Because under copyright law, the students are allowed to do that. They are the owner of the content that they're contributing. That does not answer your question of academic integrity. I understand that. With respect to academic integrity, we do have a process for educators to ask for questions to be removed, and we comply with that. And we use the notice and takedown process as well for that process. We also work with publishers to remove content that they find on our site. And maybe in reaction to what you're saying, we do have test bank questions that occasionally show up on our site. But like everything else that I talked about, we have 65 million documents and materials on our site. It is impossible for us to monitor what students are posting and what students are asking. And so to the extent possible, we remove what we see. To the extent possible, we ask you as educators, we ask our partners such as publishers to help us find and remove that kind of content.
That's
I
great.
hope that answers your question.
Ian did follow up, and I think his response is kind of similar to what Jamie's asking here. Jamie's noting it's kind of exhausting to check sites for compromising assignments. Ian's, noticing that, despite how fast we respond and how impressive that is, that there's kind of a quantity on our site that kind of makes it difficult. I don't know if there's, and he followed up, can we, taking your point about student answers, can you share identifying information about students should they have provided answers to questions?
There's a lot of different questions, so I'll try to take that in reverse order because as I heard them. Do we provide student information? There is a process to get that, but we do not offer it up front. That's because if the asker is still from the UK, we respect user privacy. Right? It is as important in California, which is where we're located, where we're governed by the CCPA, as it is in the UK, where we're governed by GDPR, that user information are private, and we do not disclose that to anyone who asks. Having said that, there is a process under both sets of copyright and academic integrity laws under both of our countries that we do comply with. So if a student is accused of cheating and uploading copyright information on our site, there is a process in where you can get a subpoena easily, and we will respond to that subpoena and tell you who uploaded it and who's looked at it. That is a choice that universities make on whether or not they follow that, and we do often get those requests and we comply with it. In terms of, I think the question is, whether how do we kind of whack-a-mole situation? I think we have the same difficulty as you do. And I hate to kind of keep going back to what I was saying earlier is that it's really, really hard, just as hard it is for us to monitor as it is for you. And I think for the publishers, and not to cry about it, it might be harder for us because we have so much users. We have, like I said earlier, we have 20 million unique users a month. We have 65 million documents. And as we get takedowns, we do try to remove it as quickly as possible. But it is really hard for us to be proactive because we don't know what these questions are. And back to that, what I was saying earlier, if as an instructor, you want to upload assessments or questions onto our site, that is actually a way for us to be able to use that because people can't re-upload the same thing to prevent that from uploaded. It's a thought.
Yeah, and just to supplement what Monique's saying, we do have millions of documents on our site. The wonderful thing is we have this community of educators on our site who we're working with, through forums like this and through, I guess, people like me. So if ever, individually you guys have questions, concerns, issues, you can reach out, and we are very happy to engage in those conversations, get on the phone, engage in the email exchanges, and hopefully find the support that you individually need. Because it's one thing to have the policy, it's another thing to kind of meet your individual questions, which is what this is. Yeah, the questions you have coming in are so great.
Absolutely, and we want to work with you, all of you out there in the ether. We want to be supportive of educators, and more importantly, we respect copyright holders and ownership. We are here to help students. We're not here to help students cheat. We're not here to help people violate someone's copyright rights and ownership. But we need your help in doing this. I know that sounds like we're putting a lot on you, but as I mentioned earlier, you're the best person to tell us when something on our site doesn't belong here. You're the best person to tell us that this does not belong in my course. This does not belong, from my school or from my classroom. And we are happy to work with you on any of that. We're happy to take your feedback on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how we can better serve our users, which includes all the educators that I talked about.
It's kind of great to see in the chat, Jamie chiming in, letting us know we've worked with Jamie and actually taken some stuff down because of that collaboration. And Ruth, I've seen this a lot. Users can upload things that don't belong to a course, and then you're sitting there, you've claimed the course, and all of a sudden you get notifications of things that aren't even relevant to what you're doing. That's not a copyright issue, just kind of a usability issue. And again, it's those conversations between you and us that really allow us to identify that and work on a fix. That's really kind of the wonder of it.
Yeah, it's funny about claiming the courses. That's actually a funny way to see that, people are actually mislabeling. It does happen. We have students that are a bit in a hurry when they sign up and sometimes select the wrong thing or label their materials incorrectly.
Following up with Professor Richter's question here, I think I can feel the initial question on verification. I think when you sign up for a verified account on Course Hero, you agree to the terms, you provide a name, and the profile is generated. We can take it down, but that's, I think, part of the sign up process. The comments, let's see here, Professor Richter has mixed feelings about the model of Course Hero. You can see the goodness and support of both students and faculty members, but please, sorry, it took me a second to read through the rest, but please stop using your name. I'm going to message you privately, Professor Richter, to make sure we take care of that.
And I think that slide is no longer showing, but we do have people like Chris and Diksha who are here to help you specifically as educators. So do let us know if there's specific issues with respect to your name or anything else.
I'm looking through the questions, seeing if we have something that remains unaddressed. Really appreciate these questions coming in, and yeah, Monique has the expertise to answer them far beyond me. So I appreciate being the intermediary here.
Oh, Sorry, I was looking on the wrong chat.
Yeah, we got 2 here.
Oh, there's so much information. Okay. I think someone asked for a copy of the deck. I think we'll make that available.
Yes, yeah, after the session.
And I know I kind of jumped over it, but there is a link at the bottom of our site that says copyright information. And there you'll actually find a lot of the information I kind of quickly ran through that we make available as well. So it's a good resource.
Any other questions from those in attendance? This has been, yeah, really helpful. Hopefully everyone can, when needed, find the right form. Oh, thank you, Neve, for the link. That's the link to what was navigated to in the video.
No, sorry, I'm just catching up on the chats, and thank you for some of your support. We do have a team that remove and address all the takedown notices that we get, and we try to be very prompt and responsive. And please feel free to reach out to us if you feel like we're not. I think sometimes things do get a little lost in the ether. I have people tweet things at me that expect that it'll end up in the queue, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it slips through. So the best way to locate us and to reach out to us and contact us is through the email addresses actually that Diksha put in Slack, or compliance@CourseHero, or privacy at CourseHero if you feel that your name is incorrectly used, as Professor pointed out, and we'll respond.
All right. If there are any other questions from the group, please feel free to add them to the chat, to the Q&A.
I think I put everyone to sleep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I basically wanted to ask the group a question, throwing it back out there. We've had a really engaging group. As I mentioned on the top of the session, this is the first time we're doing this, and it's based on requests that we've received in the past to really understand the process. So if you have suggestions of what else we could be doing in future events, what other information would be helpful for you or other faculty, please do share that either in the Q&A or chat box, because we do pay attention to this and like to incorporate as much as we can, both across our product offerings and also events.
And I'm happy to babble on more about copyright if that's at all interesting to anyone. Part of the reason we've never done a session like this in the past is it's a pretty dry and boring topic. And it's very mechanical when it comes down to enforcement on our site and how we go about it. But we thought we would be informative for everyone to know exactly what the process is and why we follow it. But if anyone wants to know more about copyright, I'm happy to talk on next time.
Yeah, it looks like we're in a good place. Perhaps we can end today's session a little early, if that sounds good to you, Monique. And everyone who's in attendance, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Monique, obviously, for an excellent presentation.